I still remember the way the sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our honeymoon suite, casting golden light across the room. I was lying on the bed, barefoot, just soaking in the quiet after the whirlwind of our wedding day. Myra and I had said our vows only days before, surrounded by a small group of close friends and family. It wasn't extravagant, just a simple ceremony with string lights strung across the backyard, laughter echoing into the night as we danced under the stars. That first dance still gives me chills when I think about it. She looked so beautiful, her eyes locked onto mine like nothing else in the world mattered. But just a week into our new life together, everything started to unravel. Myra came home one evening and told me that her parents wanted us to join them for a trip to Scottsdale. She seemed excited, but something felt off to me. Her parents and I had never been particularly close. Clara and Marshall were always polite, but there was an unspoken tension whenever we were together. Still, I didn't want to be the bad guy or seem controlling, so I nodded and smiled, telling myself it was no big deal. When Myra left with them, I stayed behind. At first, I thought I'd enjoy the time to myself, get some work done, maybe catch up on reading. But the silence in the house was suffocating. Every message she sent felt rehearsed, too cheerful. Then came the photo. Myra standing in front of a palm tree, sunglasses on, smiling wide. I should have been happy for her, but instead, I felt uneasy. Something about it all just didn't sit right. When she finally returned, I noticed it immediately. The spark in her eyes was gone. We used to talk for hours, laughing about the smallest things, sharing dreams and plans for the future. Now, she barely looked at me. Conversations were short and distant. I asked if everything was okay, and she would say yes, but her tone lacked warmth. I tried to brush it off, blaming jet lag or stress, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then out of nowhere, she dropped the bomb. "Maybe we need a break," she said quietly, staring at the floor. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A break? After less than 2 weeks of marriage? I begged her to explain, to tell me what had changed, but she wouldn't, or couldn't, give me a real answer. I was devastated, heartbroken, confused. How could this be happening? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I went through every conversation, every moment since the trip. The more I thought, the more certain I became that something had happened while she was away. I started digging, checking social media profiles, searching for any clue. That's when I found him, Theo. A mutual friend of her parents, apparently. And there they were in photos from Scottsdale, laughing together, looking far too comfortable. It hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a family vacation. This was an introduction. They weren't just visiting, they were setting something up. Myra's parents had orchestrated the whole thing, subtly pulling her away from me, nudging her toward someone else. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd ever felt. I confronted her. I needed answers. When I showed her the photos, she didn't deny it. She didn't even look surprised. Instead, she just stood there, arms crossed, silent. So, I turned to her parents. I called them, demanded to know why they'd done this. To my shock, they didn't even try to hide it. Clara told me, quite plainly, that they thought Theo was a better match for Myra, that they believed he could give her a more stable life. They said it like they were doing her a favor, like they had the right to make those decisions for her. That was the breaking point. I realized then that this wasn't just about Myra. It was about control. Her parents had been manipulating her for years, shaping her views, planting doubts. And now, they had succeeded in driving a wedge between us. I couldn't let it end like this. I didn't want people to think I was the villain, or that Myra had simply fallen out of love. So I did something drastic. I organized a gathering. Friends, family, everyone who had been part of our lives, I invited them. I prepared a slideshow of the trip, the photos of Myra and Theo, screenshots of messages, even audio snippets of conversations where her parents admitted their intentions. I told the truth, raw and unfiltered. The fallout was immediate. People were shocked. Some were angry, others sympathetic. Myra packed her things and left without saying goodbye. Her parents cut me off completely, calling me disrespectful and unhinged. But I didn't care anymore. For the first time in months, I felt free. In the weeks that followed, I began to heal. I spent time alone, reflecting on everything that had happened. I saw how easily I had been manipulated, not just by Myra, but by the entire dynamic she came from. I realized that love shouldn't come with strings pulled by someone else. Real love is built on trust, respect, and honesty, not manipulation and control. Eventually, I hosted another gathering, this time not to expose anyone, but to celebrate. I invited the people who had stood by me, who had offered support and kindness during the darkest days. There was music, laughter, and a sense of renewal in the air. I raised a glass, not in bitterness, but in gratitude for surviving, for learning, for growing. Looking back now, I see that heartbreak opened a door I didn't know existed. One that led me to a life where I could finally breathe, finally be myself. And for that, I'm thankful. The days after the gathering felt surreal, like I was waking up from a long, confusing dream. The house was quieter without Myra, eerily so at first, but with each passing day, the silence became comforting. I started to enjoy the stillness, the way it allowed me to hear my own thoughts without interruption. For months, I had been caught in a storm of emotions, confusion, betrayal, anger, grief. But now, there was something else rising within me, clarity. I began unpacking not just the physical remnants of our marriage, but the emotional ones too. Boxes of shared memories sat in the garage, untouched for weeks. I didn't rush to throw anything away. Instead, I took time to go through each item, a framed photo from our engagement dinner, a handwritten note she'd left on the fridge one morning, a playlist we used to dance to when we were first dating. Some things brought tears, others a smile, but none of them held me back. They simply reminded me of who I had been and how far I had come. I reconnected with old friends, people who had drifted away during the chaos of the wedding and the fallout that followed. One by one, they reached out, checking in, offering support. I realized how many people genuinely cared about me, even if I hadn't let them in while everything was falling apart. I made an effort to show up for them too, to be present in ways I hadn't been before. I found strength in those friendships, a kind of warmth that wasn't conditional or complicated. Work became the refuge. I threw myself into projects I had postponed, ideas I had shelved while trying to make the marriage work. I was more focused than ever, driven not by desperation to prove something, but by a newfound sense of purpose. I started writing again, journals at first, then short essays, eventually stories. Writing helped me process everything, gave voice to the parts of me I had buried beneath the weight of expectation and heartbreak. There were still moments of sadness, of course. Late at night, sometimes I would catch myself wondering what life might have been like if things had gone differently. If Myra had chosen honesty over loyalty, if her parents had respected our relationship instead of undermining it. But those thoughts no longer consumed me. I learned to acknowledge them, then let them pass like clouds across the sky. One evening, several months later, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, watching the city lights flicker against the dusk. A soft breeze brushed past, carrying the scent of jasmine from a nearby garden. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, feeling lighter than I had in years. I thought about the man I had been when I first met Myra, eager to please, desperate to belong, willing to bend for the sake of love. And I thought about the man I had become, stronger, wiser, unafraid to set boundaries, to walk away when something no longer served me. It wasn't just the marriage that had changed me. It was the entire experience, the manipulation, the lies, the painful truth, the aftermath, the healing. Each piece had shaped me, taught me lessons I couldn't have learned any other way. I no longer saw myself as someone who had been wronged. I saw myself as someone who had grown. I knew I would love again. Maybe not right away, but someday. When the time was right, I would meet someone who didn't come with strings attached, someone whose love was rooted in trust, not control. Someone who chose me as fiercely as I would choose them. Until then, I was enough. I had everything I needed, my health, my freedom, my voice, and the quiet certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled, not because I had forgotten the pain, but because I had survived it.